Welcome to EPG Pathshala. The topic for today's discussion is environmental pollution, issues and challenges at the national and international level. Dear friends, if we look at ancient Indian culture, we find that respect for environment that was inherent in India. In ancient India, we used to respect the forces of nature and the air, basic necessities like air, water, soil, mountains, rivers, they were worshipped like gods and goddesses. The instances of worshipping mountains, water bodies are numerous in Indian religious texts. And this respect for the natural forces or the components of the environment actually helped the ancient Indians to preserve and protect the environment. And as we can say that the respect for environment was echoed in ancient religious philosophies of India. But however, with the passage of time, this respect kept on declining, and this was replaced by greed for more power, greed for more resources, and greed to gain more money. This greed, coupled with population increase and various other factors, have led to overexploitation of natural resources, increase in waste generation, depletion of these resources, and pollution. Pollution not only of air, water, but also of soil and noise. These overexploitation, overpopulation, over-waste generation, and thereby degradation of soil, degradation of groundwater table, degradation of air and water has created manifold problems. But these problems are not only in India and not only in developing countries, but the same problems are faced by the developed countries of the world as well. Therefore, today we shall be discussing major environmental challenges which are being faced by the international community and India, the extent of those problems, the level of pollution, and the responses at the international level. When we say responses at the international level, we will be looking into various conventions, treaties, and multilateral agreements which have been entered into as a response to combat environmental pollution. And then finally, we will be looking at the national response, that is the response at the Indian level, what laws we have enacted, and the extent of the liability regime created by the Indian government to combat environmental pollution. Today, we are facing various environmental challenges which are posed by unregulated human activities. These include air pollution, worsening of air quality, water pollution, depletion of water resources, noise pollution, soil pollution, contamination of soil, contamination of groundwater table, climate change, depletion of forests, loss of biodiversity, depletion of ozone layers, etc. This apart, another problem which we are facing today is the mounting garbage and its unscientific disposal, the increasing heap of hazardous and toxic wastes and their unscientific disposal. These problems will be discussed in the first section of this paper. First of all, we will be dealing with air pollution. We all know air is very important for the survival of humans and other living organisms. But the quality of air across the globe has deteriorated in recent times. Ambient air quality has posed a serious challenge across the globe. And it's not only that commercial and economic and industrialized activities are polluting the air, but the household activities are also deteriorating the air quality. We saw that in villages, the burning of cow dung, the burning of kerosene, the burning of charcoal, that is leading to air pollution, and therefore we are also creating the air pollution through household activities. And the problem is acute. In developing countries, especially fast developing countries, the problem is further acute in fast growing urban areas of the world where there is rapid increase in economic and industrial activities. But the problem is not confined to urban areas only. We find the problem in villages also across the globe. If we look at the World Bank report of 2016, the World Bank report suggests that about 87% of the world's population lives in countries in which air pollution levels exceed the air quality guidelines set by the World Health Organization. This report points out that situation in low and middle income countries is alarming, where 90% of the population was exposed to dangerous levels of air pollution in 2013. The report further points out that air pollution has become a grave health hazard and is responsible for high mortality rate. It is claimed that premature mortality due to air pollution has increased from 30% in 1990 to has increased by 30% from 1990 to 2013, and it is reported that 2.9 million deaths per annum are due to ambient PM 2.5 levels. Therefore, ambient air quality has been claimed to be the fourth leading fatal health risk globally. And India is no exception to this. India is also severely affected by air pollution. As per the reports of Greenpeace 2017, around 1.2 million people die in India annually on account of air pollution related diseases, and it costs 3% of India's gross domestic product. Greenpeace India has made an observation and assessment of 168 cities in 24 states, and as per the report, none of these cities can claim to have clean air by WHO standards. The reasons are manifold, including the use of solid fuels like charcoal, dung, wood, burning of fossil fuels for cooking and heating, and also various other activities. Millions of people in India and globally are affected. But the worst part is that if we look at the PM 2.5 levels, the scale is up to 500. And in November 2017, in some of these cities, the scale measured 500. The maximum level of PM 2.5 which a scale can measure is 500. Therefore, the scale level 500 PM 2.5 levels, which shows that the problem in India is gravest across the world. When we look at water pollution, which is another major environmental challenge which is faced by the world at large, if we look at UNEP report 2016, that is snapshot of world's water quality 2016 report, that report suggests that around 1/3 of the all water bodies in Latin America, Asia and Africa are affected by pathogen pollution, and it presents a serious health hazard to people who are using the same water for drinking as well as for other purposes like bathing. And the extent of water pollution is grave in Asian countries. It is reported that more than 50% of the regions in Asia are affected by organic pollution, pathogen and organic pollution. The report suggests that 323 billion people living on these continents, they are under the risk of waterborne diseases. However, the problem is not confined to developing countries alone. The developed countries like Canada, they have also shown severe waterborne diseases. They have been reported in these countries in Canada. So far as India is concerned, the report suggests that 80% of India's surface water is polluted. Central Pollution Control Board has estimated that 75 to 80% of this pollution is due to the domestic waste which flows into water bodies untreated. If we look at the report of the Central Pollution Control Board, that Central Pollution Control Board reveals that if we look at the contaminants of groundwater, so groundwater is contaminated by arsenic, fluoride, nitrate and iron. 10 states are affected by arsenic, wherein 68 number of districts are affected. These 10 states include states of Haryana, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, West Bengal, Assam, Manipur and Karnataka, where the groundwater table is affected by high arsenic contamination. Fluoride has been found in 20 states and 276 districts. Nitrate has been found in 21 states in 387 districts, and iron has been found in 24 states in 297 districts in excess of the permissible limits. Therefore, the groundwater table is afflicted by pollution. Further, if we look at reports deeper, in 2017 we find that in certain places the problem is so acute. For example, in West Bengal, nearly all 200 wells, they were contaminated by high arsenic content, and the villagers were using the same for drinking purposes. Therefore, we can simply say that India's groundwater future is at stake. Ocean acidification is yet another environmental challenge. Climate change and the increasing greenhouse gases, oceans act as the sinks of greenhouse gases, and nearly a quarter of these greenhouse gases are absorbed by the oceans, which causes heating of the ocean waters at all levels, and it has also led to acidification of the oceans, and which is very detrimental to marine ecosystems. As per the reports of NASA, Since the onset of industrial revolution, acidity of surface waters has increased by 30%, which is largely attributable to carbon dioxide emissions which are being absorbed by the oceans. And as we said, that this heating and ocean acidification is leading to, it has twin effects. One, it is leading to it is detrimental to marine ecosystems, and secondly, it is also leading to the increase in the level of the oceans. It is also estimated that ocean carbon dioxide absorption by the oceans is increasing every year, making them more acidic. Absorption of carbon dioxide by oceans is increasing by 2 billion tons per annum. Another problem which is faced at the environmental front is noise pollution. It is becoming a very significant environmental concern in the recent years. Noise pollution has significant impact on human health, and recently in 2017 the studies have shown proportionate hearing loss which is attributable to noise pollution. As per the study conducted in 2017, where noise pollution levels in 50 cities across the globe was measured, it was found that Guangzhou in China is the most affected city, followed by New Delhi, India. Mumbai ranks 4th so far as the worst city in noise pollution is concerned. But the problem becomes alarming when we see the WHO reports which suggest that more than 360 million people are affected by hearing loss, and of these, around 32 million are children. Another report, if we look at World Hearing Loss City Ranking 2017, that has suggested a very dismal picture so far as India is concerned. New Delhi tops the list of countries which are affected worst by hearing loss due to noise pollution, followed by Mumbai. So the two cities which are on the top, number 1 and number 2 spot, that belongs to New Delhi and Mumbai, where the hearing loss is equivalent to 20 years than the actual age. Next problem which is confronted on the environmental front is soil pollution. Soil degradation and soil pollution can be caused by various reasons, including the presence of chemicals in excess of the natural composition caused by excessive fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, agricultural practices, shifting cultivation, antibiotics contained in animal manure, sewage, waste dumping, industrial activities, mining activities, leading to seepage of chemicals into soil. So there may be manifold reasons for soil degradation and soil pollution. As per the report of Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations of 2017, around 1/3 of the world's soils are degraded and billions of tons of soil are lost to farming each year. As per these reports, and another, if we look at a joint study conducted by Yale Environment and China Dialogue, which is reported in 2014, 16.1% of the China's soil are polluted, and figure for farmlands is much higher. The main contaminants of soil are cadmium, lead, nickel and arsenic. If we look at 2015 report of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, it says 40% of the African continent's soils are degraded. So far as India is concerned, it does not lag behind on this front also. It has also been facing this problem at a large scale. State of India's Environment Report 2017 has reported that around 40% to 70% of land in India has undergone desertification. Further, India is one of the 4 major countries affected by soil salination. Next problem is climate change. Climate change is a serious issue which is confronting the survival of mankind at present. It implies the changes in the usual weather found at a particular place over a period of time, that is rainfall spells, rainfall quantum, the duration, the timing, dry spells, changes in temperature, changes in winter season, etc. It implies change in Earth's climate in totality. Climate change, it was earlier considered only to be a rhetoric, but now it has become a reality. If we look at the data, we find that surface air temperature of the Earth has increased by 1.8 degree Fahrenheit during the last 115 years, that is from 1901 to 2016. And the effects of this climate change lead to shrinking of ice sheets at the poles, melting of glaciers, glacier retreat, increase in the level of the oceans, and thereby causing survival threat to those cities which are having low-lying coastal zones. Not only this, climate change has a very serious impact on food production, and therefore once the agriculture is hit, the entire community is affected. Next problem, next major challenge faced by the world at large is waste generation. Today, due to unregulated activities of mankind and increase in population, waste generation is increasing in all the countries of the world, and the developing countries are severely affected by this. Waste including electronic waste, e-waste, plastic waste, demolition waste, construction waste, household waste, municipal waste, solid waste, biomedical waste. So many types of waste they are being generated, and each category of waste is on the increase. And India has a dubious distinction of being the largest waste, one of the largest waste generation so far as electronic waste is concerned and plastic waste is concerned. If this waste is disposed of in an unscientific manner, it causes serious risk hazards, serious health hazards. It degrades the soil. The chemicals, they seep into the groundwater table. They contaminate the groundwater. The radioactive materials, if they are not properly disposed of, if the hazardous substances are not properly disposed of, they can seriously dent the health, they can pose a serious health hazard. And therefore, that is another problem which the world is confronting today. Loss of biodiversity. Biodiversity is very important for the existence of ecosystems, for the survival of ecosystems, for the ability of the ecosystems to recover from disasters. Biodiversity refers to diversity in varied kinds of genes and species. It includes within itself infinite variety of life forms, variety of species in flora and fauna, variety of ecosystems, variation of genes in individual species, etc. Various human activities have a direct and indirect impact on biological diversity due to loss of habitat, soil degradation, climate change, pollution, overexploitation of biological resources. Substantial loss has been caused to the biodiversity. If we look at Millennium Ecosystem Assessment Report of 2005, substantial loss has been caused to biodiversity which cannot be reversed. And if the loss to biodiversity continues, it will have disastrous consequences on ecosystem, livelihood, health, and ultimately survival of the poor. Therefore, we have seen that the world is facing various environmental problems. We have discussed some of them. Now let us examine what response has been given at the international level, what efforts have been made at the international level to combat these environmental challenges. It must be remembered here that Stockholm Declaration of June 1972 proved to be a catalyst in international efforts directed at preservation and protection of the environment. Since 1972, various instruments, various declarations have come on the scene dealing with environment. Rather, if we can safely say that 1972 Stockholm Declaration was brought about the emergence of international environmental governance on the international front. Therefore, this conference of 1972, which was held from June 5 to June 16 in Stockholm, is very important, and because it started the focus of the international community towards the environmental protection. In this conference, which lasted for more than 11 days almost 100 various countries of the world participated, and which resulted in a declaration which is known as Stockholm Declaration, which contains 26 general principles. The conference resulted in adoption of 109 recommendations which constituted the action plan of environment. Stockholm Declaration also created a separate international environmental law regime. The principles enunciated in the declaration, they called for safeguarding natural resources, that is air, water, land, flora and fauna, ecosystems, promotion and protection of the environment, wildlife conservation, management of toxic substances, preventing pollution of the oceans, etc. And as we have discussed, that as a follow-up to this declaration in 1972, United Nations Environment Program that was established as an institution to implement the policies and the declarations made in 1972. This apart, World Charter for Nature that was adopted in 1982, in October 1982, by the General Assembly of the United Nations. This charter recognizes that excessive exploitation of natural resources and destruction of habitats causes damage to ecology and biodiversity which cannot be reversed. It further provides that competition for scarce natural resources can lead to conflict and degradation of such resources. and therefore the Charter provided that the nature shall be respected, and it called for the preservation of life forms on earth so as to prevent them from being extinct. The Charter also called for sustainable utilization of natural resources and protection and preservation of land and sea. The Charter recognized fundamental principles laid down by the International Union for Conservation of Nature and UNEP. It contains 24 declarations. Thereafter, another important instrument, that is Vienna Convention 1985, was brought at the international front. It was actually the outcome of the efforts of 20 countries. Those 20 countries which were largely responsible for producing CFC, or the chlorofluorocarbons, which are responsible for depletion of ozone layer. The world community was alarmed by the detection of hole in the ozone layer over Antarctica, and therefore they came up with a framework treaty which sets out the general obligations of the parties to cooperate, promote research and exchange information on adverse impacts of human activities on the ozone layer, and to take appropriate legal, administrative and policy measures to control and limit and replace the activities which have adverse impact on the ozone layer. Vienna Convention is a framework treaty, and it has achieved universal ratification. It does not lay down any specific targets for reduction of ozone depleting substances, but then it laid down a framework treaty and it provided for adoption of further amendments and protocols. And on this basis, Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer was adopted in 1987, which is based on the doctrine of equity and common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities. Montreal Protocol also takes into account precautionary principle. The purpose of Montreal Protocol was to limit and ultimately abolish the emission of those substances which deplete the ozone layer, and accordingly various substances have been included in the list of controlled substances like CFCs, halons, fully halogenated CFCs, carbon tetrachloride, methyl chloroform, hydrochlorofluorocarbons, hydrobromofluorocarbons, methane bromide, bromochloromethane, and HFCs. Montreal Protocol is one of the most successful efforts of the United Nations, and it has achieved universal ratification. Another important development at the international level was the adoption of Rio Declaration in 1992, in a summit which is popularly known as Earth Summit, which was held at Rio de Janeiro in 1992. The International Conference on Human Environment of 1992 discussed in detail various issues like greenhouse effect, desertification, global warming, deforestation, ozone depletion, and other issues. And it provided a groundwork for entering into various multilateral treaties, agreements, and guidelines dealing with environmental issues. Earth Summit resulted in the approval of 3 key documents, that is, a Rio Declaration on Environment and Development, which contains 27 non-binding guiding principles on environment and development, an action plan in the form of Agenda 21, dealing with sustainable development, an authoritative statement of principles for a global consensus on the management, conservation, and sustainable development of forests. The statement is not legally binding though. A Rio Declaration provided a further impetus to international environmental law, and it led to the adoption of UNFCCC, Convention on Biological Diversity, and also led to negotiations on Convention on Desertification. Earth Summit paved the way for future summits, conferences on Agenda 21, and accordingly we find that in 1997 in New York, Earth Plus 5 Summit was held, wherein a resolution for further implementation of Agenda 21 was adopted. In 2002, Johannesburg World Summit on Sustainable Development, or Earth Plus 10 Summit was held. In 2012, Rio Plus 20 Summit, or UN Conference on Sustainable Development, was held in Brazil, where it was decided to develop sustainable development goals for further development post 2015, building on Millennium Development Goals. Another important international effort is the Convention on Biological Diversity of 1992. As we have discussed, biological diversity is very important for the survival of the ecosystems, and when the biological diversity was threatened, World Flora woke from the deep slumber, and it made efforts for preventing the loss of biodiversity, and accordingly this Convention on Biological Diversity was adopted. However, it's not that up to 1992 no efforts were made at the international level for the protection of nature and wildlife. There were efforts like Stockholm Declaration June 1972, and thereafter the Convention regarding Protection of World Culture and Natural Heritage 1972, Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species or CITES 1973, the Berne Convention on Conservation of European Wildlife and their Natural Habitats 1979, etc. These efforts actually fructified in the form of adoption of Convention on Biological Diversity 1992, which entered into force on 29th of December 1992. It's a comprehensive treaty which provides for the conservation and protection of biodiversity. Though it recognizes the sovereign rights of the member states to exploit natural resources for their natural and biological resources for their development, but then it also seeks to ensure that they are utilized in such a manner so that the biodiversity is not endangered. This convention is based on sustainable development, and it led to the adoption of various protocols, two important protocols, that is the Cartagena Protocol on biosafety under CBD, which was adopted in 2000, which entered into force on 11th September 2003. We all know that genetically modified organisms or GMOs, once the biotechnology developed and living modified organisms, they came on the scene, it was identified that we need to make efforts so as to ensure the biosafety when there is transboundary movement of these living modified organisms. And therefore, with this thing in mind, this protocol, that is the Cartagena Protocol on ensuring biosafety while dealing with the transfer of living modified organisms, was adopted. Another protocol, that is on access and benefit sharing, was adopted in 2010, which came into force on 12th of October 2014, that is Nagoya Protocol on access to genetic resources and fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of their utilization. The aim of this protocol is to ensure fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of utilization of natural resources, genetic resources, and further to ensure free and equitable access to traditional knowledge associated with these genetic resources. Now we will have a look at climate change related efforts. We all know that the World Fora entered into Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer. Though the purpose of Montreal Protocol was to phase out ozone depleting substances, but we must also remember that these ozone depleting substances are also powerful greenhouse gases, and their elimination has certainly prevented the acceleration of climate change. This apart, another important development regarding climate change took place in 1988 when an Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was established. This, in addition, the World Fora also entered into a framework treaty, that is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in 1992, which entered into force on 21st March 1994, whose aim basically is to stabilize the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere in a time-bound manner. This protocol has actually paved the way for the adoption of, this convention has actually paved the way for adoption of protocols like Kyoto Protocol, which was adopted and which entered into force on 16th of February 2008, whose aim was to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases from 1990 levels to at least 5% of that. This apart, in 2015, under the United Nations Framework Convention, Paris Agreement was entered into. The aim of the Paris Agreement was to reduce or was to contain the increase in the global temperature up to 2 degrees from pre-industrial level, though the ambitious aim is to contain it up to 1.5 degrees up from the pre-industrial levels. This Paris Agreement seeks to ensure that the global emission of greenhouse gases during the period from 2050 to 2100 should be to that level only which can be absorbed by the natural sinks, that is by forests and oceans. Agreement has mandated parties to submit intended national determined contributions containing the action plan of the country to contain climate change and to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases. Next important convention which we will discuss briefly is the Basel Convention on the control of transboundary movement of hazardous waste and their disposal. Now this convention was entered into To combat the menace of hazardous waste and its transboundary movement and their disposal, the convention was adopted on 22nd of March 1989 in Basel, and it entered into force in 1992. The basic aim of this convention is to protect human health and environment from the adverse effects of the unscientific disposal of hazardous waste. And therefore, the convention aims at reduction of the hazardous waste generation and to promote their proper and scientific disposal in such a manner that it does not degrade the environment and does not pose a serious risk to the health of the persons living in the vicinity. Therefore, this convention also aims at restricting the transboundary movement of hazardous waste and to provide for a regulatory system. Not only that the international fora has entered into various conventions, treaties and bilateral agreement, but then international community has also created various institutions for implementation of these treaties like United Nations Environment Programme, Global Environment Facility, High Level Political Forum, etc. Now, having observed that the international community has taken various steps for the promotion and protection of environment, let us examine what steps have been taken at our national level, that is, what steps India has taken to protect and promote the environment. At the Indian level, we find that initially, Constitution of India did not provide for the protection and promotion of the environment. It was not mentioned in any of the lists of the Constitution. It was not mentioned as a directive principle or as a fundamental. However, traditionally, environment ethics have always formed part of Dharma, but the Constitution never provided any specific provision, any express provision regarding the same. The beginning was made after the Stockholm Declaration of 1972, when we find that in India also Wildlife Protection Act 1972 was enacted, which was followed by Water Act, that is Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1974, and this was followed by an amendment of the Constitution, 42nd Amendment of the Constitution, that is 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976, which inserted the provisions in directive principles of the state policy, that is Article 48A was inserted along with a fundamental duty, that is Article 51A clause G, which provided for the protection and preservation of the environment. This apart, entries 17A and 17B were inserted in the concurrent list of Schedule 7 relating to forests and protection of wild animals and birds respectively. This led to the development of environmental law, policy and jurisprudence in India. Thereafter, we find that India has promulgated various laws like Air Act of 1981, Environment Protection Act of 1986, Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, Forest Conservation Act 1980, Biological Diversity Act 2002, Public Liability Insurance Act 1991, Green Tribunal Act 2010, Coastal Zone Regulation 2011. Not only these acts have been enacted, various regulatory mechanism has also been created. Various rules have been promulgated by the government. These include Atomic Energy Safe Disposal of Radioactive Waste Rules 1987, Manufacture, Storage and Import of Hazardous Chemical Rules 1989, Manufacture, Use, Import, Export and Storage of Hazardous Microorganisms, Genetically Engineered Organisms or Cells Rules 1989, Chemical Accidents, Emergency Planning, Preparedness and Response Rules 1996, Ozone Depleting Substances, Regulation and Control Rules 2000, Batteries Management and Handling Rules 2001, Atomic Energy Radiation Protection Rules 2004, Atomic Energy Radiation Processing of Food and Allied Products Rules 2012, Biomedical Waste Management Rules 2016, Solid Waste Management Rules 2016, E-Waste Management Rules 2016, Plastic Waste Management Rules 2016, Hazardous and Other Waste Management and Transboundary Rules 2016, Construction of Demolition Waste Management Rules 2016. Therefore, we find that India has adopted, India has promulgated, enacted various laws and rules for protection and preservation of the environment. So friends, today we have discussed major environmental challenges which are faced by the world community at large and of course India as well. And the responses at the international level, we have seen that various conventions, treaties and agreements have been entered into, like Stockholm Declaration and thereafter various conventions dealing with climate change, dealing with the Mercury, Minamata Convention and various other environmental issues. The World Fora has also created various institutions to deal with and to implement the policies and programs relating to preservation and protection of environment. India has also not lagged behind, and various laws have been enacted by the country, including Environment Protection Act of 1986, Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, Air Act, Water Act, and various other rules have been promulgated to deal with the host of environmental problems which are faced by the community at large. But then it must be admitted that these efforts have not sufficed, and we are sitting on the pollution bombshell which is ready to explode any time, and it will take within its sweep millions and millions of people unless we act, and we act stringently. Therefore, the need of the hour is that we act and act fast. Not only the governments, but all of us need to take care of our duties which are enshrined in the Constitution towards the protection and preservation of the environment. Thank you.